You're listening to Eat, Play, Sex with Dr. Kat, the place to uplevel that sexy life of yours, with expert talk on sex, love, and nutrition.
I'm wondering even how this would impact our hormone production. And I say that because I get women who come in struggling with no sexual desire. And so I'm asking them about their lifestyle or, even what they're eating, their nutrition. I don't know enough about, obviously that's out of my scope of range to talk about hormone production, but I really feel like there's some sort of correlation there.
Yeah, gut and hormones have a role, so they would definitely work together. With lack of libido, we want to dive into so many different areas. Like we want to see, like, are you deficient in iron? Your field, like, do you have a good relationship with your husband, or do you not want to have sex with him? You won't have a libido if you've been fighting all the time.
Right.
And so, I think hormones can definitely play a huge role, and we'll hopefully dive into that with libido for sure. And then the gut hormone relationship that I've really teased apart from the research is more related to IBS than anything. And it's just in terms of like progesterone you produce a lot of during the second phase of your cycle, and that slows motility down. It's also why women, when they're pregnant, are much more likely to have reflux because progesterone is much higher. And so things move the other way. They move up instead of down. Mm-hmm. And then we get indigestion and reflux, and we're more likely to be constipated before our periods because progesterone is higher and slows things down versus when we get our period, we're more likely to have diarrhea. So there's some intricacies there for sure with the gut and hormones.
It's amazing. Let's expand more on this hormone talk, because I love talking hormones. It just makes a lot of things make sense. Because me as a bleeding woman, there are definitely, I go through the periods of time where I literally think that I'm crazy or that I'm like the worst person in the world. I'm like, why am I such a bitch in my head? And it's like, all my work, all my self-work is out the window. And then like 3 days later, I'm like, oh, I feel much better.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm really interested in this guy 1 minute and then not interested in another.
For sure. And there's evolutionary reasons behind that. And it's fascinating. Yeah, let's dive in. We can start with like hormones in a relationship, which I think is fascinating because we'll start to unpack other things in there.
Yes.
I created a little acronym, and it's not the best. So if anybody out there is really good with acronyms and they hear this and they come up with another one, please DM me. But the acronym that I have right now is SEAR, SEAR. And so there's 4 letters for 4 weeks of a woman's cycle. So, we're assuming a 28-day cycle for most women, for 4 weeks of that. And so this is a really important conversation if you are dating a woman. So either woman dating a woman, man dating a woman, if you're a woman yourself, or if you have a woman in your life. And so it covers like a big percentage of the population. And I think it's something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but I think it can really strengthen relationships, and it can help us understand who we are as women and why we are the way we are certain times of the month. And it can help us understand our significant others if we're dating a woman, or if we have, a woman in our life, if we live with a woman. So the first week, that's S, it's for self-care. So this is really when we want to nurture ourselves more or nurture our partner more as well. So this is day 1 to like 7. This is like your period basically. So day 1 is the first day of bleeding, right? From a hormonal perspective, this is when hormones, estrogen and progesterone, are at their lowest. And because of that, estrogen relates to serotonin. So with higher estrogen, we have higher serotonin, but now we have low estrogen, so we have low serotonin production. That's going to affect our mood for sure. So we're just going to be a little bit more somber, not as giggly, not as outgoing either. Estrogen is really like, if we think of estrogen as a character, it's like rock star, go get them. Like I can do anything is estrogen.
True.
And so estrogen's not there. So this is kind of like, I can't do everything. I don't want to do everything. I'm tired.
And just a puddle of mush.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's okay. So I think if we understand why it's happening, and it's not that, okay, how do we raise estrogen? This is a normal part of being a woman. And we have these fluctuations, which is the divine feminine. It's ever changing, it's flowing. And so instead it's like, how can we support ourselves? How can we raise serotonin naturally, just like subtly, like maybe buying ourselves flowers, or having, our significant other buys us flowers during this time of the cycle. You make dinner at home, you watch a funny movie to laugh. You can focus on like 5-HTP supplement wise, may be helpful during this time if your doctor thinks that's good. You're also more likely to have carbohydrate cravings because serotonin is lower. And so maybe not doing keto during this time, but eating a little bit more carbs that are healthy for you, like sweet potatoes, things like that. Also, serotonin helps to reduce pain. And so with this lower serotonin level, we can experience higher levels of pain. So people with IBS may have flares during this time, or we may just feel like kind of like achy in general. Obviously cramping during the period, but focusing on magnesium rich foods. So bring your loved one dark chocolate that's high in magnesium, or nuts and seeds, avocados, like doing thoughtful things during this time in the cycle can be really, really helpful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Be kind.
Be kind. Yeah. So S is self-care. And then as we exit that first week of the cycle, estrogen starts to rise. And so like our rock star, like hormone starts to come out. And this is where we get the second week, which is E. This is like excitability. This is like romance, sex, rock and roll. Like this is like where we really start to come into our feminine, like sexual energy, like primal energy. And this is because estrogen is rising. Serotonin is going to start to rise as well. And we really want to have sex during this time. So we'll see boosts in testosterone as well. And the reason behind this is because our body's getting ready to ovulate. And so when we ovulate, we're fertile. We want to procreate. That's why we're here. And so your body, you cannot fool biology. You'll want to have sex more. And so this is a time where you can really like dive into your sensuality. And if you're dating a woman, this is a great time to bring her out to a club, to go dancing, like to support her in this sensuality process. And she's going to feel much sexier during this time of her cycle. So if you're planning a big night, do you want to take a woman out to like a fancy dinner and dancing on day 2 of her cycle? Or day like 9, 10? The answer is day 9 or 10 for sure. It's week 2.
She doesn't even want to leave the house at day 2.
Not so much.
Go be with your other friends for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And so she'll also have extra patience during this time. So if you forget to pick the kids up from school, you might have a little bit of a hall pass here. She's going to be more flexible because estrogen is going to help, buffer that and make her feel just easier going. And so, this is a great time for all those like fun things, sexy clothes, whatever it is to support it. And your other question with, changes in who we're attracted to, this is where this starts to come in, because we're more attracted at this phase in our cycle as women to men that have more defined features. So angular face structure, more masculine, the brow that's a little bit more pronounced. Because we are in the period of procreation. So we want to get impregnated by somebody who is more masculine at this time. So like, there's actually a little caution there. If you're dating, and you fall in love with somebody during this phase of your cycle, then really see, are they also a good partner to raise the children with, or did you just want to get impregnated by them? Yeah. This is super evolutionary. We're more likely to want to be with somebody during this phase that we want to have their DNA versus them as a father. And so they're two different things.
Yeah. I wonder if that's similar for women who date women too, because if it's more of like attracted to women that are more of the, I don't know. Yeah. Super sexually attractive versus, or like the bad girl, I don't know, versus.
It's definitely more on, in my mind, it's a little bit more on physical appearance here versus some of the deeper qualities that we look for. So I think it could be extrapolated to both men and women. Unfortunately, all the research is really on, heterosexual couples, but more and more will come out on different.
Yeah, our heteronormative culture,
Mhm.
we got to catch up to that.
We do. We
Yeah.
totally have to. Yeah. So this is week 2. And so week 3, we're going into A. So SEER is A, and this is attachment. So week 3, from an evolutionary perspective, this is when we could be pregnant. We don't know yet. And so we want to start to bond with whoever we are with in case we are pregnant. So we have a father to raise our children with, or we have a significant other to raise our child with. And so this is kind of like the cuddle bug, cozy attachment phase. This is also a great time to go in deep, like spiritually, emotionally with a partner. You have progesterone starting to rise in week 3, and progesterone talks to GABA in the brain, which is your calming, anxiety reducing neurotransmitter. And so you're more likely to feel emotionally attached to your partner. You're more likely to want to kind of hang out and chill a little bit more, because progesterone is really calming, and estrogen is going to start to reduce during this period as well. And you'll also get increases in hunger, because estrogen sensitizes your cells to insulin. And when we have more insulin resistance during this phase, we're more likely to have cravings and hunger start to arise. So making sure you pack a snack for your significant other if you're going for a long trip, or you're not going to try to, fast in the middle of the day, I think is really important. So that is week 3. And then week 4 is more rest. So this is the R, this is rest. Early to bed, both hormones now are starting to drop here. This is also the time, like, you had some leeway in week 2 with getting away with things. If you fucked up, week 4, if you fuck up, you're more likely to have a more irritable partner that has like a shorter fuse, less tolerance, because estrogen is dropping. And so just being understanding, I think, at that point where, if your partner does act more irrationally or more irritable, understanding that it's likely hormonal and physiological. And then us as women, we also have to take responsibility for that. So it doesn't give us a hall pass. But if we can understand what's going on internally, we can be like, oh, I need to take a break. Like, I need to not have this conversation right now. I need to go be by myself.
Yeah.
And so I think that understanding period is really important in week 4.
Yeah, because then you can have compassion for yourself, but also have material to communicate with. I know for me, sometimes I'll get on edge, and I'll communicate that. I'll say, right now I'm noticing I'm more on the edge of myself. And so I might snap, and I don't mean to. So I'm going to be conscious of that, but I also want you to know that might happen. And it almost like the moment that I say it, it almost as if it dissipates in my body. Because it's brought to the attention that it's there.
Yeah, exactly. Understanding and just like having a knowing of what goes on brings us so much peace. It's just like that understanding piece. Doesn't mean it has to go away, but it can totally self-dissolve. And for me, what I've noticed is that if I have a partner who also understands that, first of all, it's the most attractive thing ever when you have a partner who is like, hey, I see you right now, and gives you a hug because they understand what's going on, versus like, hey, why are you like this right now? And so I think that's like next level. It's like, okay, you know who I am, my cycle, because we're intimate partners, and that I'm on week 4 and I'm a little bit more irritable. So you're giving me a hug instead of being like, why are you being such a bitch today?
Yeah.
And so I think that's how we can really evolve as a couple, is to know each other really intimately, but then to know ourselves first.
Yeah, that's so important. And I wonder, as so you're talking about in a relationship with somebody, because when you're in a relationship, you're a lot more intimate. And like you said, you're more likely to know their stage or where they're at in their flow. But what about if somebody's first starting to date somebody?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on how comfortable you are talking about this stuff. But, for me, I'm heterosexual. So if it was a guy that was talking to me, and if he was like, hey, like, where are you in your cycle? Like, I want to start to learn your cycle. I think that's amazing. And I
Oh my
think
God,
that's
I'd
like
be so
really,
wet.
yeah. It's so confident, right? Like men aren't scared of a cycle, but actually like want to know about it because it can definitely benefit them and they can plan things accordingly and really support a woman throughout that. And for me, that's the divine masculine, is like supporting a woman through her changes, whatever those like changes, fluctuations are. And so I think that it's a really cool conversation to have in the beginning, even if it's early stages. For me, when I dated my ex, like he had access to the app that tracked my cycle. He actually didn't need it. He knew my cycle better than I did.
Wow.
And he could like be like, oh, like we're midway, like we're peaking now, or we're coming down the hill. Like I can see like, oh, okay, we're coming down the hill. And warning, like if you're in a fight with a woman, you don't say you must be on week 4 of your cycle. Like that's not a good phrase. You just can think it, and then you can give her a hug, for sure. But don't use that as like part of your argument.
Right. You will get smacked if that is like the minimal thing that'll happen to you.
Lovers, thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe and head over to eatplaysex.com to connect with me and grab my sexy guides. Because my goal here is to get you to eat, play, and sex better so you can improve your sex life, which will improve every aspect of your life. Until next time, keep it sexy.